Hi, welcome to the Corner of Knit and Tea, episode 105. My name is Laura, also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Twitter and Instagram. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Stash Buckler Adventures in Yarn, where I sell my hand-spun yarns. And we have a group on Ravelry called The Corner of Knit and Tea. Welcome! I hope that you have had a wonderful week. It has been a week since I talked to you. It is now Sunday, September 24th, I believe, possibly the 25th. Let me think about that. The 25th. Okay. It is a gloomy Sunday here, a little bit rainy and overcast, very fall-like. We're still expected to get up to 70 degrees today, so not super chilly, although I am definitely in the mood for fall. I hope that you have had a wonderful week. I did a bunch of crafting this week. Never as much as I hoped to, but plenty. And I am getting excited for the end of September and the beginning of October and fall and new projects. And I actually have a few different things to show you today because I've made a little bit of progress on some things. And so let's get started. The first thing we'll do is the tea that I am drinking. Today I am drinking Ashby's Cinnamon Orange. This was a tea that was in a tea basket that my husband gave me for my birthday earlier this year. And I dumped all the tea bags into this tea box that I have and have been going through them when I want something. And I am still using my Halloween mug, my Hello Kitty Trick or Treat mug, because I love it and I hate that I can only use it for a few weeks of the year. So I'm trying to get as many weeks out of it as I can. And this was a Barnes & Noble purchase several years ago, so I'm not sure if they still exist or where you can get them, but I love mine. And so cinnamon orange tea in my Hello Kitty mug, very orangey and fall. And that's very hot. I'll have to let that cool a little bit before I drink more of it. So let's get into the knits. The most exciting thing I have to show you today is my Rhinebeck sweater. And we have talked about this for weeks. And last week I said my goal was to get through the sleeves, and I had to work on it a little bit this morning to finish that for the podcast. But I did. I got through the top and of the fronts and the backs, and I just seamed the shoulder seams. I still have the neck stitches on a needle, but it is now looking very sweater-like. So this is my Rhinebeck sweater. It is Ardara by Carol Feller. It is a beautifully cabled knit out of, I believe the book is called Celtic Cables. And I have the front, and the back is probably even easier to show you. And so I am now ready for all of the finishing, and there is quite a bit of finishing. There is a collar, which I think is what I'll pick up and do next. That's the next thing according to the instructions. Then I have a little bit of sleeve treatments. It's just real short cap sleeves, but I have about an inch of ribbing to put on both the sleeves. And then, of course, I have long button bands. This is a tunic length sweater, so I have long button bands to put on it. And then it does have a belt and belt loops, so that is the final part of the knit. Now, of course, I am hoping to finish all of these things this week because I was really hoping to finish by September 30th. I don't know if that's going to happen. I will work on it and try and make it happen if I bleed over a few days into October. Not a big deal, but I am feeling very positive because at this point, I won't say I cannot fail to have a Rhinebeck sweater because, of course, something terrible will happen then, but I am so close I can taste it. So again, this is Ardara by Carol Feller. I am using Cascade 220 Heathers in the Irlande colorway for Ireland. It is a green and you can't really see it super well. This is a pretty good representation of the color. It's got yellow flecks in it, and I am super excited about it. I was trying to think how many balls in I am. I want to say I'm 5.5 or 6 in. I need to wind some more balls so that I can work on the rest of it. I have like a little portion of a ball left that I'll probably use for the sleeves. But then I want to start new balls for the neck and then for the button bands because I don't want to have to stop halfway through. So I am super excited for this, and I am making my goals, and I will take some pictures and put it up on Instagram. But this might be, next week might be the last week you see it. I don't know if I'll get through everything by then. And then I probably won't do a real great photo shoot with it until we get to Rhinebeck, because we'll take Rhinebeck photos. So I will do modeled photos in Rhinebeck. So that will be later in October. But that is the biggest bulk of what I am working on, and I'm very, very pleased with it. So more pictures and more progress to come soon. So I have been talking for the last few weeks about how I want to knit all the things. And I did show you previously that I had started on a fall sock. I had wanted to make it my Halloween socks. And so I had started on it, and gosh, I've just got tails and things hanging out everywhere. I knit a little bit more on it this week. I put a few more stripes on, and then I started to do my heel flap. This is the colorway is Ghost Town. It is post super stripe sock, which is the I'm doing this without show notes today, so I have to think about this. I think I have the tag. It is the Simply Socks house brand colorway. I do have the tag. It is post yarn. And post yarn is 75% superwash Corriedale wool, 25% nylon in the colorway Ghost Town. Like I said, this is from Simply Socks Yarn Company. I bought this last year wanting to do Halloween socks and did not get around to it, so I am doing them this year. And then I am using a ball of, I think it's Dale Baby, it's either Dale Baby Uli or it might be Stroll Solids, Knit Pick Stroll in black, so that I can do cuffs, heels, and toes without matching up the stripes, without messing up the stripe sequence. I did decide to do, after some thought, I originally thought that I would do this is my standard vanilla sock. So these are on US ones. So I'm doing 56 stitches. I did 2x2 rib for about 10 or 11 rows, and then went into the striping yarn, and I'm knitting that. I thought about doing a Fish Lips Kiss heel because it is so perfect for self-striping sock yarn. But then I decided I just don't really enjoy the feel of the Fish Lips Kiss. I really enjoy knitting them. I have it memorized, and I think they look great with stripy socks, but I just don't enjoy the feel of them on my foot. So I am sticking with a slip stitch heel flap. You won't be able to see any of that because it's black yarn, of course. And I am about halfway through the heel flap, then I will turn the heel, and so I will have a little bit of deviation in my stripes for the gusset, because it will be more stitches, so the strips will be slightly thinner, but I still didn't want to break it up over, so it shouldn't be too bad, and then I will go down and do my rounded toe. I don't know why I decided to knit these top down instead of toe up. I actually find the heel flap and gusset easier to do top down rather than doing it toe up, and so that might be part of it, because I just didn't want to deal with it. I am hoping to have enough yarn left over to do a pair for Roxy, but we will just have to see about that. It's actually a 6 striping yarn. It's very hard to see. That's a little bit better. It's this bright blue, kind of a goldenrod yellow, orange, red, and then you can kind of see there's a purple and a black in there. And what I did is I went halfway through. I did the purple, red, and a little bit of the orange to do my black heel flap. So then I will have the goldenrod, the blue, and the black. So I just kind of split it up that way. Hopefully it will work out that way to do it the same on the second sock. And then I'll see what I'm going to do for Miss Roxy. But since I added a few stripes and part of a heel flap, I am probably not going to work on this anymore this month because I want to join Socktober and knit as many pairs of socks as I can in Socktober for me and Miss Roxy. And I think they'll be great traveling projects when I go to Rhinebeck because I don't have to think about them so much. But the deal is many of the Socktober knit-alongs, one of which is in the Woolly Wonka Fibers group. There are also a couple others on Ravelry. Many of them say that you can use whips, and in Anne's group, that's Woolly Wonka Fibers, she says that they cannot be more than 25% done. I usually consider the heel 25% done. So I suppose I could finish the heel on these, but then I can't do the rest of the sock or the second sock until October starts in order to have them be eligible. So I am leaving these where they are at and cheating by starting on another pair of socks. So this is my Halloween socks. I am calling them Let Me Take You to Spooky Town. So that is that one. Last week I told you I was dying to wind up yarn and cast on for a million more things, and I decided that I wanted to cast on for another pair of socks. I had actually picked this pattern and this skein of stock yarn and put them together before some things happened, but it turned out to be the perfect time to cast them on, and I will explain why in just a moment. The yarn itself is the Cyborg's Craft Room, and unfortunately, as some of you may know and some of you may not know, the dyer behind the Cyborg's Craft Room, Megan Black, passed away a few weeks ago. There aren't many details about it. I do know that she was 33, so way too young. And like I said, I had already picked out this pattern and this skein of yarn because I wanted to do socks for Rhinebeck. And so I immediately wound it up and I actually cast on today. This is the Cyborg's Craft Room. It is her Assaculate base, which is 75% merino wool, 25% nylon. And it is in an unnamed colorway. It was just a one-of-a-kind skein that I thought was too pretty to leave sitting in the shop. And the pattern that I am doing, and the reason that I wanted to do them for Rhinebeck, is I am knitting Debbie Reese's Don't Touch Those Leaves socks, which the Grocery Girls have dubbed the officially unofficial Rhinebeck sock. It is a sock with a lacy leaf pattern, and so they dubbed it the officially unofficial Rhinebeck sock quite a while ago when the pattern came out. It was a couple months ago now, and I immediately pulled the pattern and decided that I wanted to use this skein of yarn, and I decided that even if the socks weren't done so that I could wear them at Rhinebeck, at the very least I could be knitting them at Rhinebeck. So this beautiful one-of-a-kind skein, it totally reminds me of fall colors. It is reds and pinks and purples, and then it's really hard to see. It's got little flashes of green and brown and a gray, and it is just knitting up beautifully like fall. And I actually cast on for these. My husband needed some new shoes, so we went shopping this morning, and I cast on for these in the car and did the cuff and 2 repeats of the leaf pattern, which you can just start to see. And I am loving the way this is knitting up. I am thinking good thoughts for Megan's friends and family, and I am enjoying knitting these socks. And so that is the second cast on for the week, or the second project that I worked on this week. Again, I don't want to get through this more than 25% because I want it to be able to count. I suspect I'll have plenty to do this week with the sweater, and so I may not get back to these until next weekend, and next Saturday is October 1st. But I figured I might as well start, and worst case, I can get down to where I want to start the heel, and then I can pick these up. And I'm hoping to have enough yarn left over to do a little matchy-matchy pair for my little mini-me. So we'll have to see. I haven't 100% decided if she's going to get the same pattern or if I'm just going to do plain socks for her. This is super lacy, and so it blocks out that the yarn overs, I don't know if it's my tension or on these size needles, but it works out so that it's super lacy, and I'm just not sure about giving her super lacy socks. I don't know whether she'll snag them or how they'll wear on her. So if nothing else, I will knit her just plain stockinette versions, but I might add some leaves, or I might just maybe refine the pattern so that it's like one leaf down the middle of the front of the sock, just so she's got a little something to look at. Anyway, so that is, like I said, it is the Cyborg's Craft Room in honor of Megan Black, who passed away, and the officially unofficial Rhinebeck socks. So that is my knitting for this week. Actually, I did start one other project and I forgot to bring it in, but I don't have very much done on it. It is a hat for Roxy for winter, so I will bring that one in next week. My plan is to knit socks, and a couple little things like hats and mittens for Roxy in October. So that's what I'm working towards as soon as I finish with the sweater, and that is what you will see. So, sip of tea, and then let's move on to knitting. Spinning. I just finished knitting. Oh, I know what I was going to talk about. I had a question in my mailbox, and I will go back and answer it. But in case I don't get back to it before this evening, I had a question in my mailbox, in my Ravelry mailbox, from a viewer of the podcast asking me questions about knitting socks. She noted that she has kind of figured out what her formula is for knitting socks in terms of what her stitch count should be with a certain yarn and certain needles. And she's finding that while she's knitting a different pair right now, they're coming out too big, and she's using what she thinks her magic formula is. So let's talk about gauge and socks for a minute. I have an exceptionally small foot. My foot is a size 6.5. So most socks, when they are at a count of 60 or 64 stitches, or even the bigger ones at 72, are way too big for me. For a long time, what I did, and what I still do sometimes with pattern socks, is sometimes if the cuff has an all-around pattern, and it calls for 64 stitches and I can't easily modify it down, what I will do is I will knit the cuff at 64 inches, and then when I get ready to do the heel, I will decrease stitches across the bottom of the foot so that I have fewer stitches on the bottom of the foot than on the top of the foot. And then I will continue knitting the sock all the way down to the toe. It requires a few extra decrease rounds on the top of the toe that you don't complete with the bottom, but I have found that if I decrease some stitches around the heel and then on the bottom of the foot so that I still have the pattern over the top of the foot, it makes the sock fit a little more snugly around my heel and the bottom of my foot, and I don't have so much extra fabric bunching up. That said, a lot of the socks that I knit these days are, hang on 2 seconds because I'm trying to do this without knocking my needles out. The only problem with putting them in. A lot of the socks that I do these days are vanilla socks. And that is both because I'm kind of lazy and because I have a lot of self-striping yarn and because they're easy and they don't require any concentration. I can knit them in the movies, whatever. I have basically 2 sets of basic sock counts. When I am using US 1 needles, which are 2.25 millimeter, I usually stick to 56 stitches for my sock. That fits my small foot very well, and then I don't have to accommodate for the extra stitches and pulling them out on the underside of the foot. I have found, though, that sometimes I do not like the gauge that I get on US 1s because I guess I have gotten looser over time. So I have switched to US 0s, and usually when I switch to US 0s, I actually go up to 60 stitches now, and that gives me a nice snug fitting sock on my foot. This pattern actually, even though it's lacy, it is written for size small, medium, and large, and the size small called for 56 stitches. So I went ahead and put them on US 1s, which is again 2.25. I kind of go back and forth between 0s and 1s. It depends on the sock yarn. Most of the time at this point, I can tell by feel about what I'm going to like with it. But if you cannot tell by feel, you may just have to swatch and count your stitches or start knitting the cuff and then rip it out and redo it if you decide that it's not quite right. Unfortunately, I have no magic bullet. Every sock yarn is a little bit different and is going to knit at a little bit different gauge. The other thing that I can tell you is unless you are using the same needles for every pair of sock, if you have multiple sets of sock needles, every set of sock needles may be minutely different. So in the US, we use different sizing than millimeters. We convert to millimeters, but we have like US 1, US 2, US 3, US 4, and they supposedly line up with millimeter measurements, but needle sizes in the US are proprietary. And so a 2.25 in one needle brand may not be a 2.25 millimeter in, well, okay, the millimeters should be the same, but a US 1 in one brand may not be the same in another brand. Also, the tolerances on knitting needles are not always the best. So you could get okay, so my absolute favorite sock needles that I absolutely love are my my Signatures US 1s. I love those. I knit almost all my socks on those, except that, like I said, sometimes the fabric is too loose and I go down to zeros. For zeros, I have a bunch of different kinds that I've been testing. I have a pair of Eddie Flip Sticks. I have Hiya Sharps, which I'm about to start in something, and I have Zings. I have Zings that I have put in a pair of socks. That's another pair of socks I should pull out because I did the toes and then I stopped. So different needles are not going to be exactly the same size. And so your gauge on even two sets of US 1s may be different. The other thing, and this is even worse, and I don't even know what to tell you. So on these new socks, I actually bought a pair of carbons needles because I have used the carbons in other sizes and very much like them. However, I have seen people say that when they order multiple sets of carbons, again, these are US 1s, 2.25 millimeters. I have seen people who have ordered two sets of US carbons 1s and they're different sizes. So, unless you're using the exact same needles on the exact same yarn every time, there is going to be some variation in the gauge of your socks. And honestly, you are going to have to wing it. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, I will tell you, sometimes I start knitting a sock and I do not like the gauge and I rip it out and switch needles. So, and I've made a lot of socks. I mean, I'm not primarily a sock knitter, but I've probably made 50 pairs of socks in my lifetime. And I still don't always get it right on the first try. So I hope that sort of answered your question. I'm sorry that I don't have a better answer for you, but my best answer is cast on and try and treat it like a swatch. And if you get it on the first try, awesome. And if not, ripping out a cuff is not that much to rip out. So you'll just have to see. Okay, now for real, I'm going to move on to spinning, but I am going to take one more sip of tea. So last week I showed you the second skein that I'm spinning for a friend. And I am just about ready to show you what that friend has done for me. Those of you who kept an eye on Instagram this weekend, you probably saw a sneak preview. I am putting the finishing touches on it now, and I'm not quite ready to make the official announcement, so that might be next week or the week after. I haven't decided. We'll just have to see how quickly things go. But this is the second skein that I am spinning for her because she did some work for me that I cannot do for myself. So this is a beautiful skein of Southern Cross fibers. It was a South African superfine merino, which, as I said, is my absolute favorite fiber to spin. Amazingly soft and puffy. This was the colorway Sea Fog. It is a lavender gray, and I finished that on Thursday night. And I am holding on to this for my friend. So that goes with the other skein that I spun from her. And now I am ready to move on to skeins that I can share with you. So on the wheel right now, I have the braid that I talked about last week. This is Fat Cat Knits. It is her Panda, which is 72% superwash merino, 14% bamboo, 14% stellina, 14% trilobal nylon. Which makes this a great blend for socks. Really great for socks. And it's a little hard to see, but the trilobal nylon adds just a little bit of sparkle to it. That was probably why you won't be able to see this. But you'll just have to trust me. It has just a little bit of sparkle, and it is in pinks and reds and browns, and it is coming out absolutely deliciously. I am about halfway done. So I hope to have this one finished and up and ready to go in the shop midweek. So keep an eye on that. This one is called Rapture, and again, it's Fat Cat Knits. So I expect to be finished with this one midweek, and I had hoped to crank out one more braid in September, and I'm not going to make it because I'm not going to finish in September. But I do hope to finish one more braid this week before Sunday. Sunday is October 2nd, which means Monday, October 3rd is the beginning of Spinzilla. Next week, I will show you what I am spinning for Spinzilla, but I am trying to get my bobbins finished and cleaned off in advance. So I'm going to try and finish this one this week, and then I'm going to try and finish another spin this week and get 2 more skeins in the shop. And then my Spinzilla spinning, I think that first week in October is going to be a little bit of selfish spinning. I'm going to finish spinning for my Hap shawl, and I have another shawl project that I would really like to do, and I have a couple braids for that. I will bring all of those next week to show you. In addition to whatever knitting I want to cast on, there's going to be lots and lots to show you next week. But my next spin is this beauty. It is called Peepers. It is a limited edition 4 ounces of Targhee from Spunky Eclectic. I have spun Spunky Eclectic before, and this is a braid of purples and grays and kind of olivey greens, and it is just warm fall colors. I think of it like the skies and the leaves, and it is just going to be beautiful, and Targhee is squishy, and that is a great color representation right there. So this one will be spun up for the shop as well, and I am excited for that. So that was a little more content today than the last couple weeks. I hope you enjoyed. Like I said, I will be back next week, possibly with an announcement. If not next week, it will definitely be the following week. And lots of knits and spins, and it's fall and I'm loving it, and let's do lots of warm woolly things. So I hope that you have had a wonderful week and weekend, and I hope that the week ahead treats you kindly. I wish you much crafting, and as I always say, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye!